So, Juan, I wanted to share with you an idea, because you and I have been talking about products, and one of the terms that we come up with is the idea of the minimum viable product, right?
Right.
Which I think you and I agree that basically means it would be if the customer comes to us and they have a dream of a product, or if we have a dream of a product to take to market, if we brainstormed 45 features that it could have, we would then try to identify, well, what is the minimum that we would need to have a viable product, right? Is that what you thought that meant?
Okay, let me tell you what my understanding. Minimum viable product is a way to test the product, to see if it's really going to be, is the marketplace going to want to use this? Is this something that's going to solve the problem?
Wow.
Okay, so it's basically the minimum that you need to test the concept.
You were ahead of me, because I had missed that, and that's what I wanted to share this with you, because it elaborates the idea a little bit. I had thought that the minimum viable product would be, we've agreed of those 45 features, these 5 are necessary, we're going to build something with these 5 and take it to market. And very naive me, right?
But yeah, you
nice.
Take it to market to test, but that's not what you release as the marketable product. You have to probably add a little bit more on that.
Wow. Well, Juan, you always impress me, because that's I was doing some reading this morning, and what I learned was two new.
You got some new.
I got new acronyms.
Words.
First acronym was MVF, which is minimum viable feature.
Right.
The next was MMF, or actually let's skip that one. Was MMP, a minimum marketable product, and then the last one was MMF, which is minimum marketable, MMR, minimum marketable release. So MMF, minimum viable feature, MMP, minimum viable product, and MMR, minimum marketable release.
And release is a new term to me, but I'm assuming it means after you've done an initial release of the product, it's the new version of it.
I'm not really sure. That's why I was kind of hoping to flesh this out with you a little more.
It seems like, if we tied into the whole agile process, that's how that works.
Let's take it back from the beginning and start. Maybe we'll get this wrong, because neither of us are taking a very deep dive this morning. We're kind of just fleshing it out, right? But to me, the minimum viable feature, that really stood out to me as like what is the thing? There's probably in every feature that we have, in every product out there, there's something that it's a killer app that makes it a killer app, right? It's some feature that it does. Like if it's a placement application we're working on, it helps to have initially it was the reports, right?
Okay. Yes.
That was the killer thing.
That was the key feature for that product. That was the reason that product was being developed.
Right. Would that be the minimum viable feature? I guess so, right? If we were to deliver one thing, that would be it.
Yeah. Again, what you're looking at with the minimum viable,
the
operative word is viable. You're testing. You are testing a feature to see, is this. Then the minimum marketable feature is something that that's what you can release to the market, and then the
minimum marketable release.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're still talking about the minimum marketable feature at the later thing. So I think it's you just keep adding features.
I think you're right.
To the point where you decide, okay, we have enough critical mass to call it a release. So in your backlog, you start accumulating all these requests, you get all these user stories. And then you say, okay, you start to develop features that'll solve those stories, that'll give the stories, credence. And then you say, okay, when we're going to take on the next release, we're going to pick these features to roll out, because those are the things that are going to function the best, that are going to give the most traction to the product. And that's the key thing with the product manager. They have to make those decisions. They have to look and weigh them and say, okay, based. And then this is more towards the private side, where you're releasing something that's a profitable item versus working for a nonprofit. But I think the principles still apply.
I wonder how we can incorporate this change with our methodology.
So the minimum viable feature is something that you're going to come up with to test
the viability.
The viability of something. So you're going to do probably a series of those to define the product.
What defines viability?
The market. You're basically saying, I have a new idea to get from point A to B.
So
and instead of using horses, we're going to use this thing called an internal combustion engine. We're going to see if people want to buy this. Okay.
So if you set it on a table, so to speak, simple example, would they pick it up and use it?
Yeah.
Right. So for example, with our placement app, this minimum viable feature was the reporting. So the reporting, we created this thing that will allow you to generate reports to give to the state of California so that they can know the thing that they keep asking you about, right?
Right.
Will you use it? And the answer clearly is yes, because the state of California keeps coming knocking on the door saying, give us a report, and we don't have that.
Okay. So that basically defines that particular feature.
Is something defined as viable if the customer comes to us asking for it to be built?
No.
Why not?
Okay, so I want you to make my horse faster.
I can't do that.
Well,
I could through breeding. So
right. So I mean, you could go down that road, but you see where I'm going with this. Just because now, what you need to do is get down to the desire is to get someplace faster.
Oh, good gosh! What a great example.
So they always go back to it because it's the
so yes.
And now I want to get someplace faster, more reliably. I've got to find out a new way to do that.
So and we can flesh that out in the business case. If you were to come to me and simply say, make my horse go faster, and I turned around to the team and say, let's make his horse go faster, we're headed towards disappointment.
Yep.
Right? If instead I say, hold on just a minute, let's talk a little bit about this. So tell me, you want to go faster. Is that what you're telling me? No, I want my horse to go faster. But does it have to be on your horse? Or do you just need to get from point A to point B faster?
They won't be able to think that. But what you try to do is understand what their underlying desire is.
But that's the thing. If we can,
they're going to frame it in what they know.
Right.
And sometimes you're dealing with things that haven't been developed yet.
And maybe as hard as I try to get that, the business case will say he wants a horse that will go faster. And then in the project proposals, we'll have a couple of options. One will be a program of 20-year program of horse breeding that will deliver us a thoroughbred, right?
Right.
Option B will be we're going to develop a device, call it an internal combustion engine, that's going to deliver the same thing, right? And we're going to have the pros and the cons and the costs, right? And then put it to the customer.
That's a way to do it. That's a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But what minimum viable product does is that you don't even go back to the customer with that. You basically build something and test it. You build a very quick prototype to see if this is what you let them try it out, and they say, is this what you're looking for?
So that
see, now the thing is this model, when we start talking about software is zeros and ones. You can change it. It's malleable. So it's very easy for instance, let's say with the placement app. Instead of going through this long development process that we're doing now, we basically build something, cuts right to the quick and say, here's pull the data, here's the report you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to look like. It might not be the actual data, but they'll be able to say, is this what you're looking for?
And actually have something to show.
And have something to show them.
Right.
And the time that it would take you to do that would be a fraction of the time.
I get it, Juan, now. I get it. So now I see how this life cycle works. One of the things that I was reading was talking about the surprise bonus features to come, right? So, for example, if we'd taken that approach and we said, okay, that's what you want that, you want a reporting capability, right? Okay, we're going to come up with that, we're going to develop that, we're going to test it out, here it is, it works, and we go to market, so to speak, with that, right? And of course, but...
No, you basically test to see that it works.
Okay.
Then you come back, you look and say, okay, we know this works. We know there's a demand for it. We know we can sell this product. What else do we need to add to it that's going to make it sell better than what's already out there?
Or in a non-competitive marketplace, what's going to make it fulfill the mission better?
Right. So that's when you get to the minimum marketable product.
Okay, so if that was the case, then we had the minimum viable feature with placement app is the reporting capability. We could probably drum that up pretty quickly, test it, show it to the customer, and it's viable.
Right. So,
prove its viability.
Prove its viability. To say, is this indeed what you're looking for?
And that becomes then the minimum marketable feature, right?
Yes.
Because it has been proven to be viable.
Yes.
Right. then the minimum marketable release could be that if we're ready to go, or we can then have start a feature.
Again, my understanding is you go to market with here.
Okay.
This is 1.0 of your product.
Right.
All right. At some point, people start using it and say, hey, can you add this bell?
There's
can
the backlog.
You add this one? That's the backlog. You start to look in, understand what they need behind that request. It's important. Don't just say add the bell, add the whistle. Oh, what does the bell do? Oh, it does it. Oh, what you want to know is you want an easier way to get from this screen to that screen.
So if I follow it now, I think. So if we could go back in time 6 months or so, back to the start of Placement App, what we could have done was I've identified the minimum viable feature, make it viable, make it marketable, take it to market, treat this thing as a product, and then hear the customer stories about what would make it better, create a backlog, and move forward with that, right?
Right. So you start to develop a list of features that you want to add. You weigh them in terms of, okay, if we add this feature, is it going to give us a bigger market share? Is it going to serve a bigger audience? In our case, it's going to serve a bigger audience. And you start to weigh those features, and you decide at that point which one of these you start to add and prioritize them, and then start to roll out various releases. That's why it's really RN. It's not a number. It's going to be
on and on and on.
That's right.
So then this bringing it full circle back to the Agile methodology. What did we learn from our coworker Harry about Agile? Agile is all about delivery, right?
Right.
We would have already, if we'd followed this methodology with Placement Apps 6 months ago, we would have already delivered, and we would now be on our way towards this RN.
See, because a lot of what happened, and I saw it in the process I was sitting in, the customer couldn't see it. They had to have something in front of them to react to, so that they can say, oh, well, yeah, but I see what's missing. You need to add this, this, and this. And that happened at one point. And that's why they added all that stuff. They started to add all these things, and it kind of drove the developer crazy.
But part of the I'm sorry, we're finished.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I've done with web development is I build prototypes. I don't build sites. And I test them with the user. I show, and it looks so much like the site. In fact, when I showed one to Dave, he was like, well, how come that doesn't? I said, Dave, it's not a site, it's a prototype. But it functions like a site. So you get a chance to see what's needed.
So is that sufficient for the minimum viable feature to prototype it in some way?
Yes, that's what this is. This basically is you build a prototype of the product enough to test what you need to test.
Of course, otherwise it's a product.
Otherwise it's a product. So at some point you keep going back and prototyping in such a way that makes it a lot easier to develop. So instead of going through and building out all the code behind it, you basically give them something that looks like the thing, it acts like the thing, but it doesn't really function completely. But it's enough to get the information you need.
I think we've got this. Now let me just finish off this conversation and thought with an observation. I think that the reason that we failed, that's not too strong a term with Placement App, was because we initially didn't approach it as a product. We approached it as a project. And as a project, we had to get everything into the scope of work from the get-go in order to make sure that when the project was done and we disbanded the team, that everything was done.
That's right, because project models work best for things that are like buildings. Because you can't iterate on a building.
Or moonshots.
Or moonshots, yeah. You can't iterate on that. Well, no, I'll take that back, because what Elon Musk is doing right now, he's applying agile methodology to his spacecraft. Do you see the Starship Hopper?
No.
Oh, you have to look at it. He's basically testing a new rocket motors running on methane. And he's basically testing with one engine on this kind of crude-looking, it looks like a flying water tower. And it basically just seeing, can it control the engine so it can take off and just land. It just kind of goes from one spot to another. That's all he needs to do. He doesn't need to build out the whole thing.
So for the overall technology...
No, let me finish.
Sorry.
Buildings, you can't do that. You can't iterate buildings. You have to basically plan out the entire thing, get everything mapped out, get all the materials scoped and everything, and then you build the building.
Because people die if it's not right.
It's just the nature of the way it's constructed. It's not something you can undo and redo.
It's a one-off kind of.
Okay,
Yeah.
products you can do that. I mean, when you design one of these cameras, you basically make molds and all this stuff. And at some point you say, you know what, let's change that one piece, camera lens in there. We can swap that out. You redesign a few pieces on the next production run. You can change out the whole. You can redo another version. That's why you have model 1000, model 1100, etc. But buildings you can't. So buildings end up being the big Megillah, and that's what everybody based projects on. Oh, we build buildings like this, we'll build software like this. No, with software you don't have to.
So how do you make the intelligent, informed decision about if something should it be a product or a project?
Are you able to iterate? Are you able to make changes readily?
Everything Andrew Lloyd Wright did was a project. But everything Frank Lloyd Wright. But everything that Bill Gates did is a product.
Yeah. Because at some point you can just stop and say, wait a second, we're going down the wrong road.
Right.
In fact, what a lot of startups end up doing is they start off with a minimum viable product. They say, hey, we got a great idea to sell candy, healthy snacks made from the fruit from the coffee beans.
I've got an example.
It was actually a real product.
Okay. Tell me about it. Yeah.
So the guy went off and he basically did his research and he looked at what was out there, and he figured, okay, let's see if I can sell this for $2 a pop to see if people will buy it. He made a few, didn't do a lot, just enough to see if people are going to buy it. They bought a few and they're like, I'm not buying it. It didn't matter if he made it cheaper or more. It just didn't. So right off the bat, it was a minimum viable product that tested the theory, and the theory said, no, the theory's off. They're not going to buy this. He didn't invest a lot of money. He didn't invest a lot of time. So a lot of startups do this. They'll test the idea until they get the idea, and then he decided maybe you'll try something else. So that's cocoa beans or whatever, carob. Oh, that one took off. So then he starts to scale it. He starts defining what is going to make it the minimum marketable product. Is it this big or is it this big?
So the way then, what I'm learning then is that the way I'm going to approach my projects in the future. Well, first I'm going to ask, when I have a business problem to solve, I'm going to ask, can I solve this as a project or a product, and decide which methodology to choose. If I decide the product approach, I'm going to try to identify what the minimum viable feature is, and investigate its viability. Right? Once I've determined that it's a viable feature, then how can I take that to make that a minimum marketable feature? Right?
Okay, so to get to the minimum marketable feature, you need to have enough confidence based on what you learned from the minimum viable product. And so we know that the concept works. We know that people want to buy healthy snacks.
Right.
Okay, we don't know how big or small they are yet, but we did a bunch of tests, and it looks like this size is the right size. Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Right. Just
right size, okay? And then the right ingredients or right flavors. And then we start to say, okay, where are we going to push this out? We're going to push it out in, notice like Uber, when they roll out some of their services, they didn't roll it out everywhere. Select cities.
Right.
So they basically started to
testing
viability as they go along, and then they realize I've got the critical mass now that I need to go to the next city.
And that would be then, once you have that critical mass, once you're confident in that critical mass, that's when you have the minimum marketable release.
Yep.
We've got it. I think we've just mapped out how to go from a business need to identifying the minimum viable feature, minimum marketable product, and then the minimum marketable release.
Okay.
Right?
And I'm always going to lay with the caveat is I'm going to go back and make sure that I look at these things and make sure that I'm not talking through my hat. Because I don't have my hat on. I can't talk through it.
So in meaning, what do you mean by that?
This is our discussion and what we think it is.
Oh, right.
We're basically testing whether our theory is the minimum Viable theory. The minimum viable theory for product development.
I'm going to the MMT.
MMT.
MMT for a viable. So guys, we're basing all of this off a little graph that we're studying that we don't. Neither of us have read the background on yet. So hopefully, but I think this will help us.
Well, I know about these two. These two I'm confident. This one I haven't. I'm pretty sure. I'm inferring things.
I love the key part is the RN. That's where the iterative on and on, and it's a product. Well, I think we've explored this pretty well, Juan, and so I'm we'll sign off for this one in particular. And should we both go get a second cup of coffee? Or are you on your fourth?
No. I get doubles, so yeah, it would be four.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again, and remember, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach me at kbell@rivco.org, and take care, and make every meeting matter.
Yeah.